Please be seated. Order. The first item on the order paper is the statement by the Minister in the Presidency. Planning, monitoring and evaluation on payment of service providers by government within 30 days. The Honourable the Minister.
Honourable Speaker, Cabinet colleagues, honourable members, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow South Africans. It is important to reflect on the question, why is it important to pay service providers on time and within 30 days of a valid invoice? In this regard, it should be noted that it is this government's stated intent and policy to encourage and support all business growth and development as a general rule. But we are, in particular, shining the brightest light on the challenges being faced with the small business sector and its growth and development in instances where this horrendous practice of not paying invoices on time evidently prevails. We've come to discover that many of the small businesses that we wish to advance and were actually being placed in financial distress, grave jeopardy, and prolonged hardship by the late payments for goods and services, especially by government. It was for this reason that we recalibrated our focus and launched a deliberate strategy to turn this around. We pronounced that as well as being unethical, this practice of paying later than the agreed terms on a tax invoice is wrong for sound economic reasons. It weakens small businesses, particularly because payment is its lifeblood. It lives from day to day, quite literally. Late payment damages supply sources in the value chain and strains relationships with suppliers. Late payment weakens our economy and this impact on the growth opportunities. All our efforts, given the economic headwinds that we see, as articulated correctly by Minister Godan in the medium-term budget policy statement address, must be about easing the cost of doing business in South Africa. So again, why is this payment on time so important? According to the National Development Plan, our Vision 2030, South Africa needs to create 11 million jobs by 2030 to achieve our growth targets. This will not be possible if we do not aggressively support the growth, the development of the small business sector. Our government is fully aware of this challenge, and it was for this reason that the Department of Small Business Development was established. It is therefore very important, precisely because of the central and catalytic role a thriving small business sector plays in the achievement of the NDP goals, which I submit cannot be overemphasized. For instance, and it is quite staggering, 47% of South Africa's workforce is employed by the small business sector. That is about 7.3 million South Africans. This sector also contributes 42% to our country's GDP. Indeed, many strong economies were built on the back of a strong small business sector. Cabinet approved the establishment of a special unit in the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation to tackle this problem of non-payment of suppliers within the stipulated 30-day period. The following will show some of the latest progress on payment of invoices or non-payment by national and provincial departments as monitored by the unit. There are, of course, significant measures and interventions will show that at a national departmental levels, as of September 2016, the number of invoices paid after 30 days were 14,889,000 to the value of 201 million rand. This figure is high compared to September 2015, where 13,402 invoices to the value of 214 million rand were paid after 30 days. However, a closer analysis of the quota's performance indicates that out of 40 national departments, 31 have demonstrated an improvement pattern in the payment of invoices, with 11 of those having maintained a clean record of 0 invoices throughout the quota, thus fully complying with the 30 days payment rule, such as the Department of Trade and Industry, to mention but a few, Minister Davis. This further indicates that it is fewer departments at a national level that have a challenge of timeless payment of invoices. Members, our biggest challenge lies with invoices older than 30 days and not being paid, which remains a serious concern to government. At provincial departmental level, as at September 2016, the total number of invoices paid after 30 days was 23,511 to the staggering value of 2.2 billion rand. Overall, provincial government departments remain with the highest number of invoices, and the rand value as compared to national departments, as I've said, is very concerning. This is due to a large measure to the fact that the implementation of government programs largely takes place at this sphere of government. Just generally, this special unit has to date facilitated a total amount of 207 million rand that has been paid to various service providers. This is quite remarkable, as it has received a lot of gratitude from various service providers. Can you permit me to read some of these testimonies that have been indicated by small business sector? Mrs. Seho Mutaung, who represent Babereki Consulting Engineers, had this to say: "We really appreciate what your lack of government has done for us. We're at a loss of words to tell you how thankful we are." Ofinse Ribane from Elt Pro Transcriptions: "We are very grateful for the great service that has been done." And lastly, Simtembile Bantubani from Maibuye, Africa. He had this to say: "On behalf of our company, we would like to take this opportunity to thank the department for resolving this matter. We wish and hope that has been a lesson learned by the municipality with regards to this matter, and that no small business should suffer the same fate as we did, as other small businesses cannot last for this long without payments." Honorable members, this is evidence and a living demonstration of government's commitment and resolve to addressing the plight of small business. And while these are encouraging developments, we are cognizant that others are still depressing. We remain firmly committed because small business matters to the government. We have established that at the core of non-payment of invoices are typically systemic challenges of non-adherence to supply chain processes, poor financial management, contractual disagreements, a lack of agency in the public sector, and a lack of consequences for bad practices. We are looking at ways to remedy this malady. Honorable Speaker, Cabinet has recently recommended that executive authorities of departments in transgression should take firm action against their heads of department who fall ply of this incident. We have also been documenting good practices from various government departments that are doing well to share with the rest of government how they do it. Some pockets of excellence that we identified through our monitoring programs include instances where some government departments are even paying suppliers within 4 days. These good practices have been shared with other government departments to encourage them to do the same. And to this end, a walk-in center has been established at the National Treasury offices to attend to suppliers' queries. A number of measures that have already been implemented by the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer, such as the Central Supply Database, which will go a long way in eradicating blockages in the payment processes by various government departments. I want to once more reiterate the critical role of small business in the development of the South African economy and assure you that we'll be exploring other ways in which the current efforts can be strengthened and further developed. I would like also to request members of Parliament for your cooperation as we work towards the attainment of the goals of a prosperous nation as enshrined in our Constitution and the National Development Plan. In conclusion, our message today is that at the apex of government, we have agreed to take a much harder line on government departments that do not adhere to the payment of suppliers on time after the National Treasury office.
The Honorable Mutau.
Yes, Speaker, Honorable Minister, I believe we are going to find some common cause today. Honorable members, South Africa is in the stranglehold of a relentless jobs drought. This House and the rest of the country are impacted by this national crisis, and we should do all in our power to ensure that the economy retains the jobs that we have, but we should also make sure that we encourage and not frustrate the creation of millions of new jobs as the National Development Plan demands. The NDP envisages the creation of 11 million new jobs by 2030. We are already 5 years behind since the target was set, and disappointingly, currently we have nearly 9 million job seekers in the country, and this number, honorable members, excludes the jobless who have given up looking for work. So, Minister, we're in tandem here. The Democratic Alliance thus welcomes the establishment of the special unit in the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation to assist service providers whose invoices have not been paid by government. The DPME 30 days payment unit was established only in April 2015 and works in collaboration with the Department of Public Service and Administration and National Treasury. The DA notes that the unit has already made some progress because since it was incepted, an amount of 1,177,000,000 had been paid to various service providers through the intervention of the unit. This is good. However, despite the injunction and the relevant section of the Public Finance Management Act, a Treasury Regulation and Instruction Note, and a number of cabinet directives, many SMMEs and bigger businesses continue to fall victim to non-payment by various departments within the prescribed period. And Minister, I am glad you referred to this as a horrendous practice, because that's exactly what it is. It is a horrendous practice. For instance, on the 14th of September 2016, the DPME reported to the Portfolio Committee of Public Service and Administration, as well as Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation regarding legitimate invoices older than 30 days and not paid during April to June 26 as follows. Out of the 40 government departments assessed, 33 had shown some improvement in the eradication of invoices that were older than 30 days and not paid. Notably, 26 of the 33 departments were compliant, as they did not have invoices older than 30 days and not paid. Disappointingly, however, 7 departments had shown a downward trend. Among them, the Departments of Public Works with 10,757 invoices older than 30 days and not paid, Justice and Constitutional Development 1,088, Home Affairs 375, the Presidency 331, and Water and Sanitation with 151 outstanding invoices. The average number of invoices older than 30 days and not paid for the period April to June 2016 was 11,844, a regression of 7,544 invoices compared with the average number of invoices of 4,300 that were paid after 30 days during the period, the same period in 2015. As of June 2016, national departments had 12,870 invoices to the value of 62 million older than 30 days and not paid. With regard to provincial departments, the average rent value of invoices older than 30 days and not paid during that period was 3.5 billion rand compared with the average of 2.9 billion in the corresponding period in 2015. This was a deterioration of 600 million rand. As of June 2016, provincial departments had 39,833 invoices to the value of 3.3 billion rand older than 30 days and not paid. The worst transgressor among the provinces with regard to these invoices older than 30 days and not paid was Gauteng. And I agree, Minister, indeed it is true that the provinces have a problem. The province owed suppliers 2.2 billion of the 3.3 billion invoices owed by the provinces at June 2016. The major non-compliers with regard to non-payment of invoices were the provincial departments of health and education. Honorable members, this is where the tire hits the road. Health and education. This cannot be. Listen to this. Both the departments during April to June 2016 contributed 91%, 90%, and 90% respectively to the transgressions in relation to late payment of invoices. Honorable Minister, how can this be allowed to happen and be allowed to continue? This is where service delivery failures had the most vulnerable people in this country. Lest we forget, and I'm glad the Minister referred to this, here are some of the consequences of not paying suppliers in time. The cash flow position of small enterprises is severely compromised. Suppliers are forced to borrow money at loan shark interest rates to meet contractual obligations. Distressing retrenchments and forced closures ensue, and service delivery is frustrated by severe constraints. We agree on that, Minister. The 30-day payment special unit identified the following root causes, and I'm sure the Minister has also touched on these ones. Non-adherence to supply chain management. Why should people not adhere to these? Lack of documentation due to non-adherence to standard operating procedures, poor financial management, bad culture in the public service. And here I want to pause, because the department recognized this situation and they described it as such. This bad culture they are talking about. The South African public sector is increasingly being characterized by a very bad culture that has permeated every sphere of government. Officials don't seem to understand the notion of public service, thinking that the public is beholden to them. I think that is familiar with most of us here. Honorable Minister, this is a very serious indictment and needs urgent corrective action. and you have referred to some of the things that I believe will be done here. Members of the committee were also deeply concerned to learn that some aggrieved suppliers were afraid to complain to the unit for fear of victimization through threats and blackmail by delinquent department. Minister, you make a note of that. They were also concerned that whistleblowers were unprotected and vulnerable. The DPME needs to address this shortcoming urgently. Failure by government and provincial departments to pay service providers within 30 days remains a festering sore in the economy of the country, particularly among small and medium-sized enterprises. Honourable Minister, the DA is aware that the department is constrained about corrective action that it can take to redress the situation, since it does not have enforcement powers. However, we were encouraged to hear, and you referred to it, Minister, during the presentation, that failure to pay suppliers within 30 days without good cause is regarded as serious misconduct that could attract consequences. Let it be so. Some heads may have to roll to get the important message across. These failures are very costly to the economy of the country. They must be eliminated. I'm glad to hear, Minister, that you'll be taking a harder line. Let us take that harder line. We have to make sure that these people understand that they have a job to do. This is in the interest of the country and not in the interest of themselves, so that they cannot fail and continue to fail. Thank you.
The Honorable Dlamini.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, here we are dealing with a straightforward matter of incompetence and disregard for regulations and legislation. We are dealing with a government that is incapable of managing its own affairs because it does not have internal capacity. This failure to implement Section 31 of PFMA confirms that the ANC government is the biggest enemy of black business development in this country. Black businesses, small businesses in this country contribute about 47% of employment and contribute about 42% to the GDP. Black businesses are operating under extreme difficult conditions where commercial banks, including DFIs, are refusing to give them credit facilities because they are citing that they are high risk because they are dealing with the state. Even when they raise personal funding to implement services, the state doesn't pay them in time as per Treasury Regulation Section 8, which clearly stipulates that invoices must be paid within 30 days from the date of invoice. So, Minister, it can't be correct that you come and mislead Parliament. Just yesterday, the Auditor General said we are wasting 30 billions of rands because basic processes are not followed and the regulations are ignored. Now, let's look at your biggest culprits when it comes to this non-payment within the 30 days. Department of Defense, 73,000 invoices were not paid in 2014 within 30 days. In 2015, they have moved to 100,000. Department of Transport, 1,000 invoices were not paid. In 2015, they have moved to 7,000. Department of Public Works, 18,000 invoices were not paid within 30 days. In 2014, now they have moved to 25,000. And over 200 million of rent was not paid within 30 days. The incompetence of this government has led over 300,000 of black businesses closing down and getting liquidated over the last 3 years. It has led to almost 146,000 job losses over the last 3 years. Some officials deliberately refuse to pay suppliers, forcing them to pay bribes in order for them to release their payments. Unless the government builds internal capacity, the problem of unpaid suppliers will remain with us for a very long time. The government must build internal capacity to process payments on time. The government must have responsive mechanism to address the disputes on time. But what is evident here is that we are dealing with a useless government. And a failure to do a simple thing like making a payment is just a tip of an iceberg. ANC government must just be removed on power because it's useless. Thank you.
The Honorable Hlengwa.
I would just like to narrate a story that I think it was sometime last year, Honorable Minister, and salaries of MPs weren't paid on time that day. Apparently a glitch was reported. And you could have seen the tension which was about the House that day. Can you imagine then the stress that small businesses have to go through? No, I was one of them. I'm narrating the difficulty that if you don't pay, You cause problem agreeing. So the members must come down there and not try and chichimeza me. So I'm saying that's how serious it is. Let's reflect this on how it affects you and then look at the damage which it does to small businesses. So Minister, we welcome your statement today and the commitments that you have made and hope that they will be seen through, because it's important that small businesses are defended, but most importantly that they are given their money on time so they can continue to grow, provide employment, and so that we can push back the frontiers of poverty. We cannot have a situation whereby small businesses bear the brutal brunt of incompetence which is about in certain departments of government. A failure to pay on time is a financial misconduct and it should not be accepted. So it may be good and well for us to come here and complain, but in the absence of consequences, those complaints are like a flickering candle in the wind. So we must actually, in fact, enforce the PFMA as it prescribes that in clause 38F, that it's an offense not to pay. An accounting officer is guilty of this offense and liable on a conviction to a fine or imprisonment for a period not exceeding 5 years if that accounting officer willfully or in a grossly negligent way fails to comply with the provisions of clause 38 of the PFMA. We need to walk the talk. We need to implement the laws that this House has passed, because to pass laws on one hand and not implement them on the other makes this House nothing more than a vacation for members when they are here to implement. Honorable Speaker, at the end of June 2016, these departments owed almost 340 million rands in unpaid invoices. Department of Defense had 10,719 invoices not paid. Public Works, 1,601. Home Affairs, 963. Water and Sanitation, 784. Rural Development, 667. The IPID, 606. So if we come here, Honorable Speaker, to celebrate having achieved targets of the annual performance plan and service delivery, but having left behind a trail of unpaid invoices, it's like borrowing from Peter to pay Paul, and it cannot be acceptable. So in the final analysis, it rests on this House and portfolio committees to ensure that departments are doing what they're supposed to do. We need to hold them to account. It can't be something done at the end of the year. What is happening here in Parliament needs to have a positive impact on the lives of the people. Let us do our jobs and ensure that these invoices are paid, and let us punish those that need to be punished. If somebody must walk the plank, then it must happen, because if we don't set examples, people will continue at the dereliction of duty and earning their salaries on time and punishing small businesses when they don't pay. I thank you.
The Honorable Dlamini. Oh, Honorable, well, I'm reading a name that's here. Honorable Kubisa.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The problem of failing to pay within 30 days cuts across all departments. And just recently, there was a story that happened in Northwest, where a service provider supplied water for almost years, but had not been paid, and the matter ended up in court. So the municipality had to pay for the service provider together with the legal cost. And that shows the ineptitude that is happening within the government. This is law, and it must be done to the letter. And it's imperative that supply management and procurement regulations are adhered to when government enters into contracts with service providers. Scrupulous adherence to these regulations is essential to combat corruption, which is unfortunately is rife in government today. And any transgression must be addressed immediately. There is no such thing as a small or big transgression. Any transgression affects negatively on government. And in the case of late payment, it also has a negative effect on suppliers. Having emphasized the need to adhere to procurement regulations and related to, it has been a major tenet of the NFP policy since our inception that particular attention must be paid to promote local SMEs. We believe that where possible, priority must be given to local SMEs when it comes to government business in all three spheres of government. If we truly want to empower our SMEs who supply goods and services to government, It is of utmost importance that government should make payments within 30 days as required. Many of the companies and entrepreneurs doing business with government are emerging. They're just starting their business. Hence, they need support in as much as they need mentorships, training, and coaching. Paying SMEs promptly is one way in which they can be supported. It defeats the objective to train SMEs and entrepreneurs in accounting and teaching. Then the value of budgeting when government delays payment and setting up such SMEs for financial failure through no fault of their own. These very same SMEs have to submit tax returns and pay tax. They are at the mercy of the middleman in sourcing materials and often have to pay upfront and in cash for these materials and hiring of equipment and tools because they are not financially stable and self-sufficient enough yet to invest in capital expenditure. And above all, there are often political wranglings and internal strife that hamper on the progress of the SMEs. They rely upon to create jobs and paid employees and expected to contribute to the economy of our country. Moreover, many households rely on SMEs for an income, a bastion against poverty and hunger. People must survive, they must live and let live. This, however, is not possible if they do not get paid on time, as it is their inalienable right. Considering the many challenges of our SMEs that they face to survive financially and their importance as drivers of job creation and economic growth, the National Freedom Party calls on the government departments in all spheres of government to ensure that payments are made to service providers in accordance with the regulations. It is the law, and it is the right thing to do, and it must be done. Thank you.
The Honorable Filtane.
Such are the sayings of the minister in the presidency. But somewhere is the reality that thousands of SMMEs suffer late payments. I personally experienced a delay of over 4 years in payments in this current administration until I threatened legal action. Then I got my payment within a week. And that is the reality for so many SMMEs. The Auditor General of South Africa in his 2015-16 report released 24 hours ago found that some departments and public entities are either concerning or requiring interventions with regard to their financial health. Also found signs of poor financial management, increasing concurrence of deficits, departments finding cash shortfall from the following year's budget, poor revenue management, and the inability to pay creditors within the required 30 days. This is not the first time that government departments and entities were rebuked by the AG for failing to comply with the 30-day payment policy. Payment of creditors within 30 days is not only a matter of compliance, but also government's mechanism for job creation and economic growth. Therefore, failure to implement this policy is a direct defiance of government directive. It is an attack on the poor citizens who are trying their best to make ends meet. Surely, such conduct must invite harsh punishment. It must be so because in some instances, it is not about internal capacity or failure of a service provider to submit relevant documents, but more to do with officials trying to extort money from small business owners through kickbacks. We therefore suggest that failure to pay creditors within 30 days be included in the Code of Ethics for Public Servants as an act of misconduct. As part of the remedial actions, once a creditor is not paid within 30 days, we suggest that they issue a revised invoice with interest added and calculated on a daily basis, covering all undue, non, and underpayment. Then government should recoup that interest from the employee who failed to implement government policy. Once you do that, Minister, then they will feel the pinch and they will comply. The cancer is fatal to small and medium-sized businesses. It drives the poor to perpetual poverty, unemployment, inequality, and it perpetuates corruption. In Zwelitsha, Eastern Cape, one person who supplied that department in May 2014 has still not gotten their money. That's over 1,000 days of painful waiting. He's still struggling. It's just not acceptable. Government officials must be warned to stop victimizing creditors who complain about their non-payment by refusing to give them further contracts. This too is an act of misconduct and it should be punishable. We leave it to you whilst you're still in power to rectify this. Otherwise, the Department of Small Businesses is being crushed by other departments. Trust that those people will forever remain emerging businesses and they'll never grow into big businesses. I thank you.
The Honorable Reverend Mishwe.
Speaker, most of us in this House have heard heartbreaking reports and stories about small businesses that have shut down because of government departments' failure to pay them within the stipulated 30 days. But the figures that Honorable Radebe shared with us this afternoon are encouraging, particularly to note that changes are taking place and that there are some departments that are able to pay suppliers within 4 days. I think government has to do everything within its power to ensure that the remaining departments that are failing to do as expected are heavily penalized, because if others can do it within 4 days, then they should be able also to do it within 4 days. Now, to tell some of the heartbreaking stories of what is happening in some departments and in some municipalities. There are reports of municipalities that pay service providers months after service has been rendered, and in some cases, only after physical threats have been made. Some service providers speak of victimization after attempts to solicit the payment that was due to them. Furthermore, there are reports of municipalities that reject invoices from service providers months after receiving them, giving those service providers no time to make corrections. There is, Honorable Minister, no justification for such delays, because if others can do within 4 days, I repeat, they also have to be able to do it. Otherwise, they must be retrained or replaced. Madam Speaker, during the recent public meetings conducted by the Public Service Commission, it was alleged that some of the reasons for late payment advanced by departments included capacity constraints, and that hampered the department's ability to pay service providers on time. They also claimed that fraud and corruption resulted in late or non-payment to service providers, and a situation where some service providers received preferential treatment. Service providers also gave input and noted, among other things, that invoices, some of them less than 1,000 rands, take more than 30 days before they are paid. Departments did not always issue written purchase orders and sometimes made last-minute changes to specifications without issuing a new purchase order to the providers. Payment was delayed where the power to approve the transaction was not delegated to other officials, because one man wants to do everything alone. If he's absent, nothing is done. Furthermore, they asserted that fraud and corruption remains an obstacle to ensuring that service providers are paid timelessly, and that often they have no option but to sue government for their monies. We are hoping, Minister, that as you gave reports of improvement, that this improvement will be seen in all departments, provincially and in the local municipalities. Thank you.
The Honorable Ntombela.
Honorable Speaker, honorable ministers, honorable members, comrades and friends, ladies and gentlemen, the resolution taken by the 52nd National Conference of the ANC continues to define our perspective on economic transformation. Among others, the pillars of the Polokwane resolutions are as follows: creating decent work as a primary objective of our economic policy, that is creating microeconomic policy that supports growth, job creation, and poverty eradication on a sustainable basis. It is such pillars which have seen to the adoption of the NDP, a living and dynamic document supported by the overwhelming majority of our people. It is within this context that the policy of the payment of the invoices within 30 days period was crafted to find expression in our quest as the ANC-led government to address the challenges faced, especially by the small and medium enterprises. Madam Speaker, logic will dictate that history should have taught us that failure to comply with this policy of 30 days payment is killing small business on whom the unemployed rely to put bread on their tables. It should also be noted with concern that non-compliance with this policy has a devastating impact on service delivery. So the insistence of the Department of Monitoring and Evaluation in the Presidency and the oversight of the Portfolio Committee on Monitoring and Evaluation on the implementation of this policy is quite commendable. On the 21st of February 2013, His Excellency President Jacob Zuma, during the State of the Nation address, made a passionate plea to the government departments to ensure that this policy is implemented, and it does happen. This initiative was enthusiastically embraced by South Africa's small and medium enterprise sector, the sector which the ANC-led government considers to be the strategic partner in growing the economy of this country. Honorable members, to quote the words of the Honorable Minister Lindiwe Zulu during the launch of the Startup Nations South Africa, I quote, she said, "We see small business and cooperatives as critical to creating an economy that benefits all. It is through this intervention that we will be able to defeat the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality. It is this partnership that holds the key to unlock our economic potential, thus affording us a golden opportunity to launch a sustained onslaught on poverty, unemployment, and inequality." Close quote. It is in this context, Comrade Chair, that implementation of this policy is viewed as a lifeline to the growth of our economy. I will in this regard not mention the evidence of statistics because the Minister ably alluded to that. To further demonstrate our government commitment of addressing the plight of our people, the Portfolio Committee on Public Service and Administration, as well as Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, took interest in the matter and held public hearings on the 15th of August 2015. The intention of the public hearings was actually aimed to assessing the impact of failure to comply and also learn from other sectors' best practices, as well as finding lasting solutions to the problem at hand. It's quite interesting to hear what these companies are saying. Some companies, such as Imendo Incorporated and Accountability Now, made very interesting inputs. The company Accountability Now suggested that the public servants responsible for the payments should make a pledge to promote and maintain the highest standard of professionalism and ethics in all they do in their official capacity. The proposed pledge seeks to promote objectives of the Constitution and is entirely made up of the extracts from the Constitution, which I think is positive. SIM Mining Consultants further suggested that payment of invoices within 30 days should be included as a key performance area in the performance agreement of the relevant officials. Imendo went on to say, as a company that is committed to empowering black professionals, it also welcomes this initiative. One of the companies which attended this public hearing, known as Geography, mentioned a story that they experienced problems in 2013 that resulted in retrenchment, which is unacceptable since unemployment is amongst the top priorities of the ANC to addressing that. Geography had other businesses with government the following year, and because of this policy initiative, the same company had a better experience and was treated better, and is therefore now speaking positively of the ANC-led government, and also maintains that there are service providers who are paid within 8 to 21 days. But it is also refreshing that the minister indicated that there are those who are paid in less than 5 days. That's quite commendable. This demonstrates, Honorable Chair, that the realization by the officials that they can up the bar in order to reach our goals, it's good. And they've got the administrative will to make this a success. However, their efforts to make this a success is hampered by the following. It could be the capacity constraints where not enough people are allocated to do the job. It could be sub judice cases where cases are pending and the department cannot intervene until the courts have resolved, or the reluctance of the service provider to give information for fear of being victimized. But there are also measures to track progress which are inadequate, and that also creates bottlenecks and problems. Fraud and corruption is always there, and the payment of the so-called appeasement fees. Well, I've never heard of this one, the appeasement fees, but I suspect that it's associated with certain people here. Honorable Matthias. It is the ANC's view that all officials in charge of processing invoices must respect this policy so as to assist small and informal businesses to grow and to create jobs. It has become obvious, Honorable Chair, that any shortcomings may impact negatively on the sustainability of business. The remedial exercise that the ANC is passionate about is skilling of public servants so that they can be able to carry out the objectives of the political dispensation. They should be trained and skilled to understand the model within which they function. That is why we believe that the School of Government should be strengthened with the capacity required to sit with the university and Technicon and be able to come out with a curriculum that is going to assist in creating the public service cadre that we all envisage. As far as we are concerned as the African National Congress, we believe that it's not utopia that the public servants should be able to speak one language on the issue of the 30 days payment, since the ANC is a caring societal organization. Honorable Minister, we wish your department well in tracking this system of payment to assist business in general, but more importantly, the highly affected small and medium enterprise. Your department has done more in this regard, and we appreciate your unwavering collective effort. Today, it is true that the South Africans who have benefited are enjoying the fruits of this labor. We have since realized, and indeed are a living testimony, that those companies who have benefited from this endeavor are speaking a positive language. I close, Madam Speaker, with a quote by Zig Ziglar. You can have everything you want in life if you just help those get what they want in life. Close quote. Together we move South Africa. Uganda walewa gumtagati. However, one should finish off by saying the notion that the ANC government does not care about small business, as alluded by some of the opposition members, is far-fetched and neither here nor there, given the fact that there is a special ministry that has been created to address the very problem. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable the Minister in the Presidency, Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation.
Thank you, Speaker. and thank all the colleagues of this Honorable House that have spoken in this debate, and also the leadership of the Portfolio Committee in overseeing the department in implementing its program. I just wanted to emphasize the point that as a government, we walk the talk. And in walking the talk, we want also to appeal to the big business sector to do as we are doing to ensure that they themselves, as big business, they pay suppliers within 30 days. Some members are saying that we are soft on corruption. Let me just tell you, yesterday Cabinet was meeting, making an assessment on the program of action for the past 4 months from July to end of October. And insofar as corruption is concerned, 58 officials have been convicted in the period under review, indicating our firm commitment in dealing with this scourge. Some members are doubting our commitment to small business development over and above what has been said by the creation of the Department of Small Business Development under Minister Lindiwe Zulu. Also yesterday, we're making an appraisal on the past few months. The Department of Small Business Development has supported from September to the end of October 149 enterprises. In addition, 104 cooperatives were supported through the Cooperative Incentive Scheme, and all these interventions are aimed at unlocking the potential of SMMEs, cooperatives, township, and rural enterprises. In the Department of Agriculture, 172 new agricultural enterprises and 23 non-agricultural enterprises were supported through various initiatives in the past 4 months. And in addition, 337 existing SMMEs were identified and supported with training and market access. On rural development, the department has transferred and allocated 51,188 hectares of land to smallholder producers, and 6,530 hectares were allocated to farm dwellers and labor tenants. This is a reflection of a government that is firmly committed in ensuring that small business development must thrive in South Africa. We therefore call upon the Parliament to make sure that they exercise their political oversight in ensuring that all suppliers are paid within the 30-day period. With those words, I would like to say, viva small business sector, viva.
That concludes party responses to the statement, and a closing statement by the Minister himself. Thank you very much. We now come to the first to the second orders, and the Secretary will read the first and second orders together.
Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Stenezen.
Madam Speaker, I wish to raise a point of privilege in terms of Rule 184 of the rules, if I may.
What is the point of privilege?
I raised it earlier in the week, asking that it be attended to after having written to the Chair of Chairs and raising a point of order in the House with the Deputy Speaker. And that's the unilateral decision of the Chairperson of the Energy Portfolio Committee to close the meetings to members of the public. Now, I really would like you to follow up on the request that we had made in terms of violation of both the Constitution and the rules of Parliament relating to public access to the activities of this House, and to check whether, in fact, the actions taken by the Minister, without reference to the committee, to close this meeting is within the rules of Parliament and within the bounds of the Constitution. And I would like to request you to look into the matter and to report back to the House before the committee meets next week.
We'll look into that. The Secretary, go ahead and read.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries on Plant Breeders' Rights Bill, and consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries on Plant Improvement Bill.
I now recognize the Honorable, the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, Speaker. I move that both reports be adopted by this House.
The motion is that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections? There are no objections. Agreed to. The Secretary will read the third.
Honorable
and fourth-
Speaker,
Yes, Honorable.
I'd like to make a correction. The Minister did not call for a closed session of the committee.
In fact, the Honorable Steenhuisen had originally referred to the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, but by the end, he actually did say the Minister. Okay. He's apologizing.
Honorable Speaker, neither did the chair close any meeting.
No, that's fine, honorable members. I think let's look into this. And I'll actually make sure Honorable Frolik attends to it.
Madam Speaker,
Honorable members, please, let's stop.
we have to correct this because there was already one meeting that was closed to the public this week.
In fact, I had said I would pursue the matter out after this. So let's leave this issue. The Secretary has read the third. Oh, you haven't read the third and fourth, yes. The Secretary will read the third and fourth orders together.
Second reading debate, Plant Breeders' Rights Bill. Second reading debate, Plant Improvement Bill.
The Honorable Malloy.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, the Portfolio Committee on Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, having considered the subject matter of the Plant Breeders' Rights Bill, referred to it on the 11th of March 2015, reports the bill with amendments. I'm starting with the breeders' rights and then we shall proceed to the plant improvement at a later stage. Madam Speaker, let me quickly remind this House about the intention and the purpose of the bill that is before us. It is about protecting the intellectual property to breeders of new plant varieties. This, of course, Madam Speaker, will contribute to economic growth because of its positive impact on the competitiveness of our country's agricultural sector. It gives local breeders and producers access to high quality of new varieties from foreign countries. The previous act, Madam Speaker, only offered protection to a limited plant genera and species, and such limitation is not in line with other international obligations which we are part of, such as TRIPS or developments in the breeding industry. Prescribed penalties are inadequate to deter deliberate infringements, lack of clear definition of the target beneficiaries of the farmer's privilege. It is unclear on the specific documentation required for applicants to secure a filing date. There is no formal support for the registrar. More importantly, Madam Speaker, the current act is not in line with Section 32 of our Constitution. Madam Speaker, because time does not permit me to talk to each and every amendment made, what I would like to bring to your attention is that most of the amendments are technical in nature. They talk to rearrangements of certain sections, changing deadlines, changing some of the wording to ensure certainty and compliance. But there are sections, of course, which we have replaced, like we said earlier on, to ensure compliance with the Constitution and to strengthen the office of the registrar. We have therefore substituted the following sections and subsections, Madam Speaker. Subsection 4 of clause 15, subsection 3 of clause 17, subsection 1 of clause 23, subsection 3 of clause 29, subsection 10 of clause 43, subsection 6 of clause 46, And on clause 52, Madam Speaker, we omitted paragraph H and substituted it with paragraph F and G. Madam Speaker, after a very long deliberation, the committee inserted two clauses. That is clause 41 on the right to appeal, clause 42 on the appeal board, composition and membership, clause 43 on the investigation and consideration by the board, and lastly, clause 44 of consideration of the appeal by the minister. We shall now proceed or migrate to deal with the plant improvement bill, Madam Speaker. And also just to remind ourselves again as to what is this bill all about and why is it necessary for us to take this bill through this House today. The plant improvement bill aims to enhance sustainable crop production and trade by regulating the quality of plants and seeds, alignment with the Constitution, formalizing the national authority to provide for recognition of the SADC harmonized seed regulatory system relating to varietal listing and seed certification, empower the minister to constitute an advisory committee to advise the registrar on the plant improvement matters and so on and so forth. Like we said earlier on with the other bill, Madam Speaker, most of the amendments on this bill as well are also technical in nature, and they also relate to rearrangement of sections, changing the wording, the deadlines, and so on and so forth. But there are therefore, of course, some sections and clauses that we have replaced and new clauses that we have inserted, and we would want to take you and your August House through those for you to consider. On clause 11, we have added subsection 6 and 7, which were not there. On clause 33, we have replaced subsection 1. On clause 39, we have replaced subsection 3. On clause 49, we substituted subsection 10. Finally, Madam Speaker, the following new clauses were inserted. Clause 47 on the right to appeal, clause 48 on the appeal board, composition and membership, clause 49 on investigation and consideration by the board, clause 50 on the consideration of the appeal by the minister. Madam Speaker, we, as a committee, irrespective of our political affiliation, we have all agreed and concurred that these two bills are desirable. It is therefore necessary for this House to ensure that we pass this bill. I therefore place before you and your August House the report on the committee on the Plant Breeders' Right Bill and the Plant Improvement Bill for your consideration and adoption. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Youngblood.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. One of the main concerns when dealing with legislation such as the Plant Improvement Bill, my colleague will talk about the Plant Breeders' Bill, is that the most vulnerable in agriculture may be at the receiving end of nationally created barriers to entry into the industry. A real concern was the possibility of the legislation preventing emerging farmers from participating. However, it is recognized that the bill supports existing commercial production while at the same time improving the participation of new entrants and helping smallholder farmers to make the transition to mainstream agriculture. The relevance of plant variety protection and improvement is the role it plays in the protection of rural development and global food security. A developing country like ours needs new and improved plant varieties to improve agricultural production. Whilst there is a need for traditional varieties to be maintained, the sad reality is that relying solely on these, farmers lose out on income. The bill strengthens the framework surrounding the business of registering, listing, and trading in various plant materials. Its importance lies therein that it recognizes the importance of quality plant propagating material to support sustainable agricultural production. The DA's policy position on the consequence of the bill is that it is fairly uncontentious and contains no excessive barriers to entry into the industry. The bill is to be seen in the context of numerous international standards and associations aimed at achieving consistently applied principle of best practice. Now, the DA supports the bill, and you can be lucky that we do, because I notice that there's not enough members in the House today to pass it. Having looked at the bill and the good it will hopefully achieve, one can hope that it will not go the way of so many of the dreams and schemes of the department's fisheries section, where the department is continuously running behind their own timelines, unable to timeously and effectively conclude the fishing rights application processes, with FRAP processes continuing to collapse while the department gets challenged in our courts. Dit bring my by die wyse waarop die kleinskaalse vissersplan, wat bedoel is om vissergemeenskappe aan ons kus lewensstandaard dramaties te verhoog, na rofweg 8 jaar steeds nog nie afgehandel is nie. Ek het nuus vir die departement. Net hier om die draai aan die Weskus is 'n skrikwekkende weerstand aan die opbou oor die wyse waarop die departement voete sleep, maar ook teen skelm pogings om pelle en komreis wat vaste werk het by die quota-lyse in te sluit.
Just on a point of order.
Order. Honourable member, what's the point of order?
Madam Chair, we are discussing two bills. The plant breeders bill and the plant improvement bill, not fisheries.
Okay, thank you very much. I will just consult honourable member. Unfortunately, we're at a transition. Order, honourable member, you can proceed.
Die kleinskaalse vissersplan is die heel laaste geleentheid wat die departement het om die belofte van eerlike transformasie in die visbedryf na te kom. Moet dit asseblief nie opmors nie. Baie dankie.
Thank you, honourable member. Honourable Kalisa.
Thanks, Chair. The economic freedom fighters advocate for the use of our indigenous resources, such as flora and fauna, for the benefit of our people, who for many years have had their rights to intellectual property infringed upon by the predators in the agricultural industry. For this noble cause, we have to reject both the Plant Breeders' Right Bill and the Plant Improvement Bill. The Plant Breeders' Right Bill defines a breeder whose rights it seeks to protect a person who bred or discovered or developed the variety, the employer of the person, if that person is an employee whose duties are such that the variety was bred or discovered and developed in the performance of those duties. This continues the colonial and apartheid project of not recognizing indigenous knowledge system as far as they relate to plant breeding. This will exclude and, in certain instances, impoverish our people who have worked with indigenous plants for decades, but who have not seen any need to register rights over these plants because of their beliefs that plants and animals are common good and not something to be privatized. This was the case when the Americans tried to hijack patent right to the rooibos plant. That case clearly exposed our shortcomings when it comes to protecting unregistered rights. Our second objection to the bill is that it seeks to make the infringement of a plant breeder's right a criminal offense. This cannot be so. Using our current legislative mechanisms, inadequate as they may be, a plant breeder's right is a private right, and enforcement should be through civil procedures and not through the criminal prosecution system. The Plant Improvement Bill includes provision regulating the quality of plant and seed. These amendments are significant in that the importance of quality plant propagating material to support sustainable production, as well as participation in the global market by setting quality standards for plants and seeds is recognized. However, this provision will entrench inequality and deepen the hunger crisis in the country because the bills are oblivious to seed system that support smallholder farmers and ecological forms of farming. The Plant Improvement Bill does not recognize or protect farmers' managed seed system or agricultural biodiversity, but undermine the rights of farmers, including the rights to reuse, exchange, and sell farm-safe seeds. Further, both these bills do not protect farmers' varieties from misappropriation, that they promote genetically uniform seed suited for industrial chemicals, deepens agricultural system that environmentally harmful, that they do not exempt crops that are imported for food security for exclusive property rights. And critically, they outlaws the age-old practice of exchanging seed, which has resulted in the agricultural diversity that we know today. Both these bills were sponsored by the agricultural monopolies to further entrench their control of agricultural markets to the exclusion of innovative small-scale farmers. As the EFF, we reject both these bills and plead with the ANC to listen to the small-scale farmers instead of being riflemen and women of Monsanto and the tiny section of the predators elite in the agricultural sector. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Singh.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Whilst we appreciate that these bills will ensure that our plants and seeds are on par with international standards and quality, we must be mindful of the growing international trend in which nearly all seed companies are being bought up by pesticide and biotech companies, which companies in turn are owned and largely controlled by pharmaceutical companies. One can reasonably assume that for-profit seed companies, in order to maximize profits, would only sell seeds that work well together with their own pesticide products. This could lead to an increased use of agrochemicals, which can adversely affect health, and which would then require the pharmaceutical parent companies medicinal drugs to then treat such adverse health consequences. It was Professor Bloomberg of the University of California who has termed cradle-to-grave care, and it is a red flag and concern with this industry. Other concerns include the fact that private ownership may encroach upon genetic resources that are held in common. A large part of agriculture in South Africa is dependent upon communities sharing, saving, and exchanging of seeds. The erosion of genetic diversity through a narrowing of breeding priorities and commercial interests must also be guarded against. Honourable Chairperson, 40% of the population of this country still reside in our rural areas and are greatly dependent upon agriculture as their form of subsistence. These are largely our poor and most vulnerable. Seeds that are commercially available are expensive. What assurances do we have that our poor and most vulnerable will have affordable access to these seed markets? Our poor and emerging farmers must have reasonable access to these seeds, and the department must ensure that there are strategies in place to facilitate and ensure that this is the case. Lastly, the IFP believes that the right to health includes the right to know what we are consuming and whether or not we are exposing ourselves to health risks through our diet. In this respect, we have closely followed the international debate on the use of the herbicide glyphosate in the agricultural sector, as evidence has emerged that glyphosate causes cancer. An investigation into the use of GMOs being used in our staple foods must immediately be undertaken, for it would be reckless and almost criminal not to do so. We therefore trust that the Department of Agriculture will conduct its own studies and will address us shortly on its findings. Subject to the above concerns, the IFP supports both these bills. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Mngwabe.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. The plant breeders' rights and the rights of those who improve on existing plant cultivars are intellectual property rights which worthy to be protected. These rights, however, do not sit comfortable within the existing intellectual property right framework and legislative provisions. And for these reasons, the NFP welcomes these bills tabled here today. The majority of amendments to the bills proposed here are largely technical in nature, dealing with the timeframes and cross-referencing. We believe that if these amendments are approved, it will tie up the proposed legislation and remove areas of uncertainty. The NFP also welcomes the appeals provision proposed for two reasons. Firstly, the wide discretion afforded to the registrar to extend or withhold the breeders' and improvements rights without an appeal mechanism is contrary to the principle of transparent governance. We believe that a set appeals mechanism is a necessity in any legislation that endows government officials with the power to grant or withhold any rights as a check and balance on the abuse of power. Secondly, we welcome the proposed structure of the appeals board, which requires that the board must consist of at least 3 members, where one person must be appointed on the basis of a knowledge of the relevant field of law, and 2 persons must be appointed on account of knowledge in the relevant field of law. The NFP believes that such an appeals board constituted in accordance with these provisions will ensure that an appeal will be fair to the applicant and will inspire confidence in the outcome, as it will be adjudicated upon by board members who are knowledgeable in the highly specialist field. In conclusion, the NFP supports both bills tabled here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Filtane.
Starting with the Plant Breeders Bill, the UDM supports the bill. It's a Section 76 bill because agriculture is a cross-cutting function. The whole purpose of the bill is, broadly speaking, to provide for a system whereunder plant breeders' rights to certain species of plants may be granted, to provide for the protection of such rights, to regulate for the granting of the said licenses. Accordingly, it touches on issues like procedure to be followed when one applies for the relevant rights periods, the rights, the sole rights, the functions of the registrar of rights. Also, it deals with appeals to the minister in cases where applications are rejected. It also deals with the establishment of the advisory committee, which gives technical support to the registrar. And the UDM is giving total support to that whole process. The Plant Improvement Bill is a welcome one. It's also a Section 76 bill, provides for the registration of certain types of business premises relating to plants to be cultivated and ultimately sold. Also deals with the standards for plants. Here, one has got in mind a plant like the wattle, coming as it does from Australia. South Africa today is running out of water. The wattle has consumed so much water. So it becomes very, very important that we check which plants are coming to our country and equally, which plants do we export. Now, the UDM has participated in a number of sessions dealing with this bill, and so there is definitely 100% support to the bill. It is absolutely necessary to tighten the rules governing the licensing of premises from which certain plants, commodities are traded. It's necessary for health reasons as well as for environmental reasons. It is necessary that we regulate the import and export of plants. So the UDM still supports that part. The only concern that we have as the UDM is whose standards are being applied when it comes to plant improvement. To what extent do we as legislators take care of the indigenous, of the rights and practices and culture of the indigenous people of this country? And to what extent will they benefit from it all? That is our concern, as the UDM. It may be that the department missed a golden opportunity here when it was accorded, an opportunity to amend the existing legislation. One hopes that going forward, it could still be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Dudley.
Thank you, Chair. The ACDP considers these bills necessary, and particularly in terms of the guarantee of quality standards for farmers buying seeds. Unfortunately, legislation on seed quality control and variety registration has in fact created problems for those seeking to develop or maintain varieties, create local seed enterprises, or cultivate locally adapted varieties, which don't always fulfill the requirements for distinctness, uniformity, and stability. In this regard, concerns have been raised because South Africa has not signed the International Treaty on Plant Genetic Resources for Food and Agriculture, a treaty signed by 136 countries to date. The treaty recognizes the enormous contribution of agriculturalists to the diversity of crops and that feed the world. It establishes a global system to provide farmers, plant breeders, and scientists with access to plant genetic materials and ensures that recipients share benefits they derive from the use of these genetic materials. The ACDP notes that the Plant Breeders' Rights Bill has been criticized by the African Centre for Biosafety because it does not include a mechanism to guard against biopiracy and ensure access and benefit sharing. While the intellectual property rights of breeders are fiercely and vigorously protected, the same protection is not ensured for traditional and indigenous knowledge that may ultimately provide the impetus for private innovation. The PBR bill should be speaking to our legislation regarding indigenous knowledge and access and benefit sharing, and the ACDPS recommends that the application for a plant breeder's right should include a requirement that breeders disclose the source of the genetic material and for the applicant to declare if any community has contributed to the development of the new variety. This declaration will facilitate fair and equitable benefit sharing to the relevant communities. The ACDP is also concerned that the Plant Breeders' Rights Bill provides a very restrictive intellectual property regime, creating an imbalance between breeders' and farmers' rights. During consultations, the civil society key issues raised included the need for the PBR bill to guard against biopiracy and ensure access and benefit sharing. There were also requests for small-scale farmers and civil society to be consulted and included in the development of the regulations. Now, the need for a clear definition of private and non-commercial use in order to safeguard the rights of small-scale farmers to freely use, save, exchange, and sell seeds and propagating materials of protected varieties, even in local markets, was made particularly clear. Subsistence and small-scale farmers want full freedom to operate in relation to protected varieties to enable widespread uptake and dissemination of new varieties among farmers. Lastly, the ACDP would like to extend sympathy to small-scale and commercial farmers and affected business people in their distress caused by the drought.
Honourable Member,
And
the
I thank
time
you.
is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Tapa.
Honourable House Chair, Ministers and Deputy Ministers present, Honourable Members. Let me only deal with the Plant Improvement Bill. The Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, together with the Portfolio Committee, have recognized the fact that the plant improvement is a significant element of agricultural production. This activity in South Africa has always been regulated through the Plant Improvement Act of 1976, which was last amended in 1996. The review of this legislation has identified the need for the alignment of its scope and provisions with the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. At the core of the Plant Improvement Bill is the improvement of production performance of crops used for food, shelter, fiber, and raw materials for the manufacturing sector. Plant improvement as an important element of manufacturing of agriculture production involves a broad range of activities that include selection, breeding, trade control, and other related matters. The scope of the legislation effectively addresses the aspects of relating to the quality of plants and seed utilized and traded in South Africa. The bill aims to enhance the sustainable crop production and trade in South Africa by regulating quality of plants and seeds. The significance of the role of plant improvement legislation lies in recognizing the importance of quality of plant propagation material to support sustainable agricultural production, as well as participation in global market by setting quality standards for plants and seeds and the types of businesses dealing with them. The standards used by the plant improvement legislation are recognized internationally by institutions such as the International Seed Testing Association and the schemes of Organization for Economic Cooperative Development, thus allowing South Africa to be in a position to participate globally in trading with seeds. In the process of consultation, as part of proper consultation, public hearings provided robust and insightful presentations which included flagged issues such as that there should be no monopoly by few commercial seed corporations, that a fair, equitable system of plant varieties should not only be protected, but local breeding and innovation should be encouraged, that the use of organic methods of farming is promoted, and also that there will be stronger penalties and compulsory guidelines for licensing, that the bill should be aligned with the realities of poverty and inequality. Concerns raised about the possibility of negative effects on the bill emerged on the emerging farmers were taken into consideration, particularly in the ANC's perspective regarding the agrarian transformation for small and emerging farmers. The bill endeavors to facilitate transformation of agricultural production through improving access of small farmers to good quality propagation material, thus increasing their production and productivity. Establish special plant improvement schemes to cater for the needs of black farmers. Enable previously disadvantaged groups to be registered business that would be involved in production and sale propagated material. The bill will empower the state to ensure that it can better coordinate and drive agrarian transformation through a comprehensive approach. The plant improvement bill, as presented, is in line with ANC's aspiration in the revitalization of agriculture and value chain, which is contained in the 9-point plan, designed to bring about growth in economy with development. It provides for the strengthening of existing commercial production with improving the participation of small producers in mainstream agriculture. The bill contributes to the Agricultural Policy Action Plan of the ANC, aimed at investment through the value chain, taking priority commodities into the National Development Plan. The ANC supports this bill. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Kruger.
Geachte huisvoorsitter, die DA ondersteun die wetsontwerp Plant Breeders Right Bill. Die beskerming van regte sal altyd hoog op die prioriteitslys van die DA bly. Soos ons met hand en tand die grondwet beskerm, so sal ons altyd die beskerming van regte voorstaan. Dit sal dan ook in hierdie geval van toepassing wees, waar die wetsontwerp poog om die regte van kwekers te beskerm, wat plante verbeter tot die voordeel van mens en dier. Hierdie wetsontwerp is dan uit die aard van die saak 'n verbetering op die Plant Breeders Act, wet van 15 van 1976. Omdat die kweek van plante 'n ingewikkelde wetenskap is en toegang dus beperk is tot slegs die ingeligtes, verwelkom die bedryf die daarstelling van 'n registrateur wat toegang tot hierdie wetenskap sal vermaklik. Voorsitter, ek wil tog onder hierdie huise aandag bring dat daar verseker nie genoeg gekonsentreer word op die insluiting van kleiner kwekers of kleinskaal boere en kwekers nie. In 11 is 'n opname in Suid-Afrika gemaak wat bevind het dat 85% van die voedselsaadregte aan 10% van kwekers behoort. Nog erger, voorsitter, is dat byna 50% van hierdie kwekers buite Suid-Afrika se grense is. In 2016 het hierdie statistiek min verander en is dit net nog 'n mislukte veer in die hoed van die ANC-regering. Alhoewel daar 15 miljard rand jaarliks deur die regering aan klein sake en kleinskaal boere bestee word, is 88% van hierdie entrepreneurs gedoem tot mislukking. Hierdie mislukkings kan slegs toegeskryf word aan die algehele gebrek van die regering om klein sake en kleinskaal boere se behoeftes te verstaan. Die mislukking van die ANC-regering om die bestaan van romslomp te bepaal en die afwesigheid van die pogings om dit te verwyder, dra ook by tot die frustrasies van die gesneuwelde entrepreneurs. Dis ook dan nie anderster in die plantkwekersbedryf nie. In hierdie wetsontwerp is die poging om kleinskaal kwekers te bemoedig om deel te word van die bedryf duidelik beperk. Die opkomende of die sogenaamde kleinskaal kwekers het verseker ander behoeftes en het tyd geword dat die politiese retoriek en praatjies van die ANC omgesit word in praktiese oplossing, sodat elke Suid-Afrika deel kan word van die ekonomie en sodoende 'n waardige lewe kan lei. 'n Laaste gedagte, voorsitter, indien DAF nie vinnig met 'n lewensvatbare droogtebeleid vorendag kom nie, sal daar min kwekers oorbly wie se regte ons probeer beskerm. Waar die DA regeer, word dit elke dag meer en meer duidelik dat die DA se beleid, aksies en beheer toegerus is om 'n beter lewe vir elke Suid-Afrikaner te verseker. Ek dank u.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Matale.
Thank you, Chairperson. Throughout the history of mankind, plants have been used for nutritional purposes and most significantly to generate various sorts of medicines. The breeding of new plants to generate French concepts has necessitated the enactment of the Plant Breeders' Rights Act in the country. The evolution of science and the emergence of technology continue to challenge plant breeders to produce more new ideas. Therefore, the amendment of the Act must be viewed as part of embracing innovation and complying with the fast development of science and technology. South Africa is the leading producer of various agricultural products, has a compelling obligation to discover, create, and develop new plants. As lawmakers, we must use our legislative authority to create a conducive environment for our plant breeders to compete with their peers in the world. The proposed amendments will place our breeders at a strategic position while at the same time improving the monitoring and control aimed at protecting breeders' intellectual rights and society as a whole. These changes will offer distinctiveness, uniformity, and stability which are much needed to preserve the sector. The breeding of new plants is an intellectual achievement that ought to be encouraged, protected, and celebrated. It is through the intellectual acumen of plant breeders that human beings are placed far ahead of other living species. The Patent Act, National Environmental Management Biodiversity Act, Conservation of Agricultural Resources Act, international treaties, and Plant Breeding Rights Act must complement each other. It is an undisputed fact that through both conventional breeding and biotechnology, agriculture has been bestowed with a rich stock of plants' genetic resources. The utilization of the plant genetic resource for food and agriculture, which include landrace material, is important in the development of a new generation of plants. Through the Act, we must be able to stimulate economic growth by ensuring the availability of plant varieties for our agricultural sector, contribute towards the sustainable use and conservation of plant resources for food and agricultural purposes, and provide a plant variety protection system which is internationally recognized.
The creation of an appeal board to accommodate those who might be aggrieved by the processes relating to the plant bleeding right is a strategic intervention that will give applicants confidence in the process. The composition of the appeal board, consisting of members with various expertise, gives an assurance that all disputes will receive maximum attention that respect and promote innovation. The board must be supported to ensure that it meets legitimate expectations of our people. Therefore, as the African National Congress, we are convinced that the inclusion of the role players will make it sure that it has the necessary capacity. The establishment of an advisory board to advise the registrar on identified technical matters relevant to plant variety protection is a right step. Over many decades, our people have never benefited meaningfully from their indigenous knowledge in the area of plant breeding. Certain discoveries of indigenous knowledge have been commercialized, but without recognition of the originators of the ideas. Indigenous knowledge cannot be limited to the invention of traditional medicine. Some of the fruits that have long been part of indigenous produce, such as mango and others, are now commercialized. Indigenous knowledge can be used together with modern biotechnology in the pharmaceutical and other sources to increase the rate of innovation. We have an obligation to jealously protect our indigenous knowledge against all manner of exploitations. The proper registration of our indigenous knowledge will assist in safeguarding the organic intellectualism of our people. We must commit ourselves to the realization of the efforts aimed at domesticating and de-radicalizing plant breeding in the country. The call inviting our attention to the fact that many of the holders of plant breeders' rights are foreigners is a loud call that warrants immediate action. The scientific research capacity of building institutions must be enhanced in order to produce more plant breeders. We have a colossal responsibility to produce many domestic plant breeders, and the passing of this bill will assist us in this regard. As the African National Congress, we support the bill. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Honorable the Deputy Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, Honorable Ndosi.
Thank you, Chair. The honorable members, Chairperson, part of reforming the legislative framework includes the two bills presented today. It is on that critical importance to contextualize the intentions of this bill before we offer unsubstantiated critics. A plant breeder's right is a form of intellectual property protection afforded to breeders of the new variety. The development of a new variety is a labor and resource-intensive process. As a result, legal protection of these properties is necessary. Plant improvements, on the other hand, involves a broad range of activities, including selection, breeding, trade control, and all other quality-related matters. South Africa is a signatory to the International Convention for the Protection of New Varieties of Plants in terms of the plant breeder's right. Furthermore, in terms of plant improvement, South Africa seed schemes are recognized by the International Seed Testing Association, ISTA, and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. These affiliations allow South Africa to be part of global harmonized systems. The international recognition of the South African systems allows us to have access to the international varieties and ensure that our agricultural sector remains competitive. Plant breeders are unlikely to release their new varieties into a territory which does not offer adequate protection for their materials. South Africa has an international obligation to fulfill, and within the context, we also have a responsibility to factor the developmental agenda of our country. It is undeniable that the holders of plant breeders' rights and those benefiting from investment in the plant improvement continue to be a few dominant role players. It is therefore important for us to transform this subsector within agriculture. This will allow us to have more black-owned businesses within the subsector, and these will emulate successes of Chemat seats in Limpopo and Vuna seats in KwaZulu-Natal. The new bills endeavor to facilitate transformational and transformation agenda as provisions were made for the minister to promulgate progressive regulation that would allow for the radical changes to the sector. Furthermore, the proposed amendments would improve access to the good quality propagation material for the smallholders and thus increase production and productivity. Establish special plant improvement scheme to cater for the needs of black farmers and enable previously disadvantaged groups to register business in the production and sale of the propagation. This opens the new doors for those that they were never allowed to be there before. It might be a long walk, but we are walking. Chairperson, there are things sometimes that are put as the facts. One, something that has been put here as a fact is a glyphosate that the honorable member said it causes cancer. That is under debate. So to come here and say it causes cancer and don't qualify it, that is under debate, is not very correct. Indeed, international cancer research has found that so, but the very same Ford Research Council has found otherwise. So it has put in debate by those respected international bodies around the world. So the bills are put here to accommodate the young African, those that were prevented to come in this territory before. We have many students that have passed even doing PhDs on these breeding matters that will be coming in the sector and making sure that South Africa is better and South Africa is put on the footing going forward. I'm not going to talk about fish issues because I don't know why DA that's just come to a nightmare when they hear about fish. We'll debate those things the other day, but for now, is one sector that needs to be transformed in a very busy way. Highly monopolized sector is highly protected by those that have been existed there. That's why I'm not amazed that they can get out of the bills we are debating and talk about fish. We'll be dealing with that as the time goes on. But one thing for sure, that area, that sector too, will be transformed. Africans and those that have been disadvantaged will find their niche as the time goes on. I agree, we're not radical enough, maybe. We're not pushing enough. We need to push enough and give more punches when it comes to that so that we can be able to transform that part of the industry and farming. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Minister. That concludes the debate. Are there any objections to the plant breeders' right? There is
House Chair.
Request for, yes.
Yes, we object to the bill.
Thank you very much. The objections of the EFF are noted, and therefore the bill has been agreed to. The bill will be sent to the National Council of Provinces. Sorry. The bill will be read for second time, sorry.
Plant Breeders' Rights Bill.
Thank you. The bill will be sent to the National Council of Provinces for concurrence. There were two bills that were being debated. I now put the question, are there any objections to the Plant Improvement Bill being read a second time? No objections agreed to. The bill can now be read for the second time. Secretary?
Plant Improvement Bill.
The bill will be sent to the National Council of Provinces for concurrence. We now move to the 5th to 7th orders of the day. Secretary? We will now take the 5th to 7th orders together as they appear on the order paper. These are requests for approval by Parliament of the international agreements on exchange of information relating to tax matters in terms of Section 231, subsection 2 of the Constitution. Are there any objections to the approval of the agreement between the Government of the Republic of South Africa and the Government of the Oriental Republic of Uruguay for the exchange of information relating to the tax matters as it appears on the order paper? I now put the question. Are there objections to the approval of the agreement between the Government of the Republic of South Africa and the Government of Oriental Republic of Uruguay for exchange of information relating to the tax matters as it appears in the order paper? No, I now note that there are declarations that have been requested. I recognize the DA.
Thank you, Chairperson. It's a Wednesday evening. I'm not an hour away from my dentist appointment. I'm sitting in the National Assembly. The bells are ringing. I look up and I see the Deputy President. He rushed in through the opposition doors. He looks rattled. It's the vote on the Division of Revenue Amendment Bill. It's anarchy. The Chief Whip of the majority party sends out his first text message. It reads, "Dear Members of Parliament, please proceed towards the NA chambers as voting will commence immediately after questions on the Peace and Security cluster." But it's not enough. Things are desperate. The Chief Whip of the majority party sends out his second text message. It reads, "Dear Members of Parliament, please urgently proceed towards the NA chambers as voting will commence immediately after questions on the Peace and Security cluster." But it's not enough.
Madam Chair.
The Division of Revenue Amendment
on a point of order.
fails to pass.
Chair, on a
in
point of order.
It's an embarrassment.
Chair, on a point of order.
How did this happen?
Chair, on a point
Honorable
of order.
How it
Menir,
happened.
Honorable Menir,
On a point of order.
Honorable Menir,
Yes.
thank you. Honorable Chauke,
Honorable Chair, the member,
order, I can't hear.
the member is not relevant to the topic that we are discussing currently. Can we really clarify that part?
The honourable member should be more patient. I'll get to the point. Thank you, Chairperson. Well, how did this happen? I'll tell you how it happened. The ANC are now so divided, so dysfunctional, so disinterested, and so poorly disciplined that they are not capable of even getting the basics right, which is simply show up and vote in Parliament. And the bottom line is this. ANC members are paid nearly R1 million a year, and they cannot even
Honorable
get the basics
Menir,
right. which is
Honorable
shut
Menir, your time has expired.
and vote.
Honorable Menir,
That is the bottom line.
your time has expired.
Chairperson, may I address you? Chair, may I address you? Chairperson, may I address you?
On which rule you want to address me?
Rule 68.
Rule 68, yes.
Now, Chairperson, we have consistently raised in this House that members must not be irrelevant to the topic. And Rule 68 is very clear as to what is it that you need to do if a member is irrelevant. So we request you to please apply Rule 68.
Thank you. That's noted.
Okay.
Continue, Honorable EFF.
Chairperson, sorry. I also rise on Rule 68. What the Honourable Member just said is totally irrelevant. Thank you.
Honorable EFF, continue.
House Chair, there is no reason why you could not have dealt with these treaties and agreement yesterday already, as we're dealing with the other two. As we have said yesterday, these tax treaties and agreements, particularly agreements that will give SARS access to more information, are important. They are important because taxation is becoming an extremely complex exercise and information has become crucial, particularly for fiscal stability. The availability of information must help SARS and other law enforcement agencies to deal decisively with tax criminals. South Africa has been very soft on multinationals, tax evasion and avoidance. The EFF has long proposed that there must be immediate undertaking of policy and research to look into the feasibility of the sixth method for transfer pricing in relation to extractive industries. To this very day, we are still waiting for SARS. Many multinational companies continue to do so as they wish, and they are law unto themselves, because they know very well that they have banks and companies like PwC, KPMG, and other big financial services that help them to hide this information and avoid paying taxes. South Africa must deal with illicit financial flows head-on, and this can only be done through legislation. An Anti-Tax Avoidance Act is an urgent matter. This is the only legislative power that will give a proper foundation to eradication of aggressive tax and avoidance and evasion. Information exchange is key, and it can only take you so far. We must protect our fiscus and collect maximum taxes to deliver services to our people, and arrest and put in prison those who are engaged in transfer
Thank you very
pricing
much. Your time
and tax
has
avoidance.
expired.
Thank you so much.
IFP.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chairperson. I can only but agree with what the Honourable Member from the EFF has said, because it is very, very important for us to have such agreements, because we are aware and we read reports of many people who are known not only to evade but avoid paying taxes to our fiscus. And not paying your taxes means that certain services cannot be delivered to those people that require those services. Now, there are many companies that are established abroad just for the purposes of avoiding paying taxes in our own country. And I think it's incumbent upon the Department or Treasury and SARS to establish a database and provide us with information of those companies that have taken advantage of the amnesty period that they have recently announced. And we need to know who these companies are, because we may find that there could be individuals sitting in this House who are directors or have had links with some companies who have been evading or avoiding tax. Recently, we heard President-elect Donald Trump say that his companies have not been paying tax for a number of years, and he's been legally evading or avoiding the paying of taxes. So I think that kind of information needs to be brought to this House, so that when we consider these agreements that we sign with other countries, we are fully informed about what's happening in our own country. Thank you, Chairperson. We will support the agreements.
Thank you. NFP.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Bilateral tax information exchange agreements are essentially agreements between the governments of two countries and their respective tax administrations, which enable them to exchange tax information upon request. South Africa currently has bilateral tax information exchange agreements with several countries, which stems from South Africa's membership of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the Global Forum on Transparency and Exchange of Information for Tax Purposes. At the Global Forum's meeting held in Mexico during 2009, it was decided to put a peer review mechanism in place for all members of the Global Forum based
applying for debt counselling when they are even still
informed about what's happening in our own country. Thank you, Chairperson. We will support the
initially when it
agreements.
started,
Thank
a lot
you.
of the applications were
NFP.
4, 5, 6 installments down as a really last resort. So I think that is progress. And that is
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Bilateral tax information exchange agreements are essentially agreements between the governments of two countries and their respective tax administrations, which enable them to exchange tax information upon request. South Africa currently has bilateral tax information exchange agreements with several countries, which stems from South Africa's membership of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the Global Forum on Transparency and Exchange of Information for Tax Purposes. At the Global Forum's meeting held in Mexico during 2009, it was decided to put a peer review mechanism in place for all members of the Global Forum based on its standards of transparency and information exchange for tax purposes. The bilateral agreements cover any tax imposed in the other contracting state, which is substantially the same as in South Africa, and includes the normal tax, secondary tax on companies, the withholding tax on royalties, tax on foreign entertainers and sports persons, as well as value-added tax. The need for exchange of tax information is of great importance, in particular for the international efforts in the fight against financial and other crimes, which includes the targeting of terrorist financing and money laundering. At a domestic level, these bilateral agreements are all of importance to ensure effective revenue collection by the state. The information which South Africa will have to access to once these agreements have been ratified and come into force will also assist our government to effectively combat incidents of tax evasion and money laundering. The National Freedom Party welcomes the fact that there is agreement that information must be required in strict accordance with the prescribed procedures and scope, and that such information is subject to legal privilege. We believe these and other provisions adequately protect trade, business, industrial, commercial, or professional secrets or trade processes. In conclusion, the National Freedom Party supports the ratification of the agreement as recommended by the Standing Committee on Finance tabled here today. Thank you.
Thank you. ANC.
Madam Chair, look at this discussion in the last 10 minutes or so. All the opposition parties but one make sensible, sober, relevant points about the issue at hand. The DA is wholly irrelevant. As it happens, since 1994, double tax agreements, because they are negotiated between the ministers concerned, foreign affairs usually and finance, are largely a fait accompli. And so what Parliament does, it considers it and decides, is there anything that has been struck in the agreement that goes against what Parliament's broader mandates provide the executive to do? And invariably, since 94 until this very term, Chairperson, we've never had even a declaration. We always engage with the DA and other parties and they say, no, what can we do given that it's where it is when it comes to us? Now, it gets worse if suddenly we're having declarations, Chairperson, and it's wholly irrelevant. The first input by Mr. Mania is completely irrelevant. He's talking about the internal operational issues of the whippery of the ANC, but not the issue of base erosion and profit shifting and illicit financial flows. Millions upon millions of rands are fleeing from this country, and actually maybe it's because it's their constituency. It's monopoly capital that is the main culprit of illicit financial flows. Moreover, you need to know that over 50 billion US dollars leaves this continent, Mr. Mania. Your people send this money out from this continent. They are your constituency. Why don't you do something about that? Why don't you stop the corruption? Why don't you stop the illicit financial flows? Why don't you stop the theft? Why don't you do your job? Why don't you be MPs? And why do you keep, after getting elected, instead of voting against what you don't believe it, you run away from the vote?
Thank you very much. Honorable member.
Why do you stand for election in the first place?
Karim, your time has expired.
If you can't exercise your right to vote.
Order. Honorable members. I will deal with the orders one by one. Are there any objections to the approval of the agreement between the government of the Republic of South Africa and the government of the Turks and Caicos Island for the exchange of information relating to tax matters as it appears on the order paper? No objection, agreed to. Thank you. I'll now go to order number 7. Are there any objections to the approval of the agreement between the Government of the Republic of South Africa and the Government of St. Christopher, St. Kitts and Nevis for the exchange of information relating to tax matters as it appears on the order paper? No objections, agreed to. Thank you very much. The next item on the order paper is the member statements. Does any member of the ANC wish to make a statement? Mr. Deck?
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, on Monday, the 14th of November 2016, we welcomed the current DA Ward 32 Councillor Clive Lotz and the DA activists of Ward 32 Merle Clinton Williams into the ranks of our glorious movement, the African National Congress. Lotz resigned in less than 100 days in office. He experienced DA treatment of black members firsthand and decided not to stay under DA racism for 5 years, but rather to join non-racialism and non-sexism in the African National Congress. Merle William Clayton and Clive Lotz refused to be servants of white monopoly capital. Merle Clayton Williams and Clive Lotz will make a meaningful contribution from within the ANC.
Thank you very much. Your time has expired. Thank you very much. Honorable Member, yes?
Thank you, House Chairperson. The ANC is committed in...
Order.
No.
Order. I'm sorry, Honorable Member. It's the opportunity for the DA now. Sorry. My apologies. Continue.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Chairperson, it's with great concern that we note that the AG, the Kimi Makweto, has revealed that irregular expenditure by this government increased by 80% from the previous year to 46 billion rand. Indeed, Chair, this is a significant increase from the 24 billion in the previous financial year that has now risen to 46 billion in irregular expenditure. Now, the DA has called on SCOPA, the Standing Committee of Public Accounts, to thoroughly investigate and to account for every cent lost to irregular, fruitless and wasteful expenditure. And we note with concern, Honourable Chairperson, that only 6 auditees were responsible for just over 50% to the tune of 23 billion of this irregular expenditure. Now, this includes PRASA, the KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga Health Departments, the Transport and Human Settlements Departments in Gauteng, and the National Department of Water and Sanitation. Now, we believe SCOPA investigation should also give us the following results. Investigations should be escalated to the Hawks.
Has expired. Thank you very much.
We believe that the ANC should be held accountable for this irregular expenditure.
EFF.
What we see from that is that the values we realized through that process.
Thank you, House Chair. As the EFF, we would like to thank all supporters, all ground forces and the leadership who came in numbers in Middleburg Magistrate Court in Mpumalanga to support Victor Radebe Mlotshwa. The 2 racist criminals, Willem Oosthuizen and Theo Martin Jackson, who beat up a black man and put him in a coffin, must know that the EFF will make sure that they rot in jail. We welcome the decision by the court to deny these 2 white racist criminals bail. This humiliation and dehumanization is only based on both else but this our blackness, which means is in actual fact a humiliation of a black person as a whole. The only reason why white people, racist criminals, will continue to display such arrogance and confidence in their racism is because they still have our land in their hands.
Thank you very much.
All white
Your time
criminals
has
must
expired.
Be warned.
Thank you.
The EFF is coming for you.
ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. The African National Congress is committed in realizing its priority to ensure access to health care towards meeting its objectives. Our manifesto stated that we will revitalize, equip, and resource nursing colleges and increase the recruitment of nurse trainees. We welcome, therefore, the recent graduation of 1,000 young professional nurses at the Lelita College of Nursing in Port Elizabeth, Eastern Cape. This success is an outcome of the bursary made available by the Eastern Cape Department of Health. In line with the ANC's aims to reduce inequalities in our health system, improve quality of care in public facilities, increase quality of capacity of human resources in public health institutions, the new nurses are a much-needed injection to our communities and healthcare services in that province. I thank you.
Thank you. IFP.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Yesterday marked 156 years since the arrival in South Africa of the first indentured Indian labourers who arrived on the 16th of November 1860 aboard the vessel Truro. Upon completion of the indenture period, they had the option to return to India or settle as citizens in South Africa. Many embraced South Africa as their new home and remained, as did my family, laboring to build a strong and prosperous South Africa, not only for themselves but for all South Africans. South Africa, in turn, embraced the Indian culture, its clothing, customs, and particularly its cuisine. I know very few South Africans from any ethnic or cultural background that do not enjoy partaking of a good curry when visiting Devon. Honourable Chairperson, I take this opportunity to not only celebrate and mark the anniversary arrival of the first Indian to South Africa, but also to call upon all South Africans who are part of our rich and diverse cultural and ethnic backgrounds to embrace each other's customs, religions, and ethnicities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
NFP.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. According to a report released by the Auditor General yesterday, irregular expenditure by South African Government Department increased by a staggering 80% to 46 billion rand in the 2015-16 financial year. Chairperson, this irregular expenditure amounts to 3% of the total government spending. We also see that expenditure deemed fruitless and wasteful increased by 14%. Every year we interrogate government departments on their budget expenditure, and every year we have the Auditor General highlighting irregular, unauthorized, and wasteful and fruitless expenditure. Every year, the Auditor General and the portfolio committees make recommendations that government departments must adhere to regulations on the procurement of goods and services, yet nothing happens, it only gets worse. The problem is that there are no sanctions for those government officials who mismanage funds, and there is no sanction for the executive who is failing to ensure compliance with regulation. The National Freedom Party believes that until such time that swift and decisive action is taken consistently against government officials who fail to comply with the regulations, and until such time as Parliament tightens the oversight function start calling the executive to account.
Your time has expired.
Thank you.
ANC, Minister Masango.
Thank you. The African National Congress commends the Nkomazi local municipality for ensuring that the estate that is worth 1.4 billion and is within the jurisdiction of this municipality complies with the Municipal Property Acts of 2004. This follows after the Leopard Creek Golf Estate, which is owned by the Rupert family, refused to pay rates according to the evaluation of their property tax in this municipality. This municipality is being owed a whopping 64 million by the estate to date. The estate claims that they had an agreement with the then municipality of paying 35,000 per month. In other words, they wanted to pay what they want to pay to the municipality. After a re-evaluation of this property, the municipality therefore demands that it be paid according to the proper rates. The ANC commends this municipality.
Thank you very much. Your time is up. ACDP.
Thank you. The ACDP fully supports the need for robust discussion in the National Assembly and believes passionately held views must be expressed. But we want to stress that both can and must be done within the bounds of common decency and the rules of the House. The rules of Parliament must be applied consistently and resolutely. We cannot continue to have officials losing control and allowing chaos in the National Assembly, as we experienced as recently as last week. The meaning of the word accountability not only includes being able to provide an explanation or or justifications, but also to accept accountability for events and transactions. And this is what Parliament should expect, not only of the executive, but of ourselves. There is much truth in the words, of course, that absolute power corrupts absolutely, and it will always be a temptation for any party with a clear majority to cover its tracks and feel less inclined to be totally open and accountable. A vibrant opposition, multi-party democracy, and a free media are useful safeguards in this respect, but holding the executive accountable should not be reduced to simply opposing any and everything for the sake of opposition. Integrity should demand that opposition parties also put the collective best interests of the people of South Africa and nation building above playing politics and vying for power and media attention. Before members of Parliament can expect to hold the executive accountable, there must be institutional accountability of members of Parliament, collectively and individually. In other words, these champions of accountability must first be accountable to themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. ANC.
The ANC is committed to accelerate the rollout of rural infrastructure, particularly roads for social and economic development. We therefore welcome the opening of the road Herzogsville-Hoopstad Road outside Bloemfontein in the Free State, which has been under construction over the past 2 years. The project is integral to the Free State provincial government's concerted effort to implement our manifesto, aimed at developing an environmentally friendly, integrated road infrastructure network that ensures safe movement of people and goods and stimulates socio-economic growth towards improving the lives of our people. The new road will contribute to improved road safety and connectivity between the local towns and surrounding farming communities.
Thank you. GA.
Thank you, Chairperson. The Democratic Alliance notes with pride that the Western Cape Provincial Government has again achieved the best audit results in the country, with 79% of provincial departments obtaining clean audits and not a single department receiving an adverse audit opinion. This is the third consecutive year that the DA-run province has been the best performing in South Africa. In contrast, the ANC-run provinces reflect continued maladministration and ongoing irregular expenditure. The Northwest, for example, saw 21% of provincial departments receiving disclaimed audit outcomes. And in Mpumalanga, more than 4 billion rand was identified as irregular expenditure. The AG reports that in these provinces, the officials lack the discipline to prepare accurate financial and performance reports and are frequently non-compliant with legislation. This is characteristic of ANC-run governments across the country and is further proof that ANC cadres care more about lining their pockets than the millions of South Africans who are left without basic services. The DA will continue to working hard to deliver these much-needed services to all South Africans where we govern.
Thank you. EFF.
The economic freedom fighters is disgusted by the conduct of the Minister of State and Security, David Mahlobo, who came here and arrogantly announced that he will never resign, despite the fact that he has been exposed that him and his wife are the biggest rhino poachers in South Africa. The revelation that someone as senior as Mahlobo wines and dines with renowned rhino poachers is a massive
On a point of order, Honorable Khawla, please take your seat.
On a point of order.
Honorable Khawla, please take your seat. Honorable Maloy.
Now, Madam Chair, we did yesterday.
Can you please...
We did yesterday, Madam Chair, refer to Rule 85. That honourable members can't just speak about members of parliament in this fashion, referring to newspaper articles without facts. If there's anything that they would want to raise, they know that they must submit a substantive motion.
The honourable member, your point of order is sustained. Honourable Khawla, Rule 85 tells us what to do with the information that you have just given. Please refrain from using the language you have used without a substantive motion. Please continue.
Please protect us from popcorns. But this must not be a surprise. Mr. Mahlobo was lifted from obscurity and
Madam
given
Chair,
position he now
just
holds
on a point of
because
order.
of his proximity
Honorable
to the captain
Khawla,
of Premier League,
please sit.
David Mabuza.
On a point
Honorable
of order.
Khawla.
Gupta family.
Please sit.
On a point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes, I hear you. That's why I'm still talking to the honorable member to sit.
Oh, okay.
If you allow me, then I'll give you the opportunity. Honorable Malloy?
Madam Chair, the honorable member knows that you must refer to members as honorable or as master. You can't call members popcorns, rhinos, and so on. It's unparliamentary.
Are you referring to the members of this house when you talk of popcorns?
The member must listen. I do not refer to anyone as a popcorn.
Continue then. Plus, please, let's mind our language.
He is therefore part and parcel of a dangerous criminal syndicate headed by the Guptas and the Zumas, whose sole purpose is the destruction of all institutions of justice so that they can continue
On a point of
looting
order.
as condemned.
No.
He has become a minister of intelligence
Madam
without
Chair.
any intelligence.
Point of order.
Be it personal or institutional.
Honorable Khawla, please wait. Honorable Malloy?
He says he is part of a criminal syndicate.
Yes. Honorable member, you are really out of order. You cannot call a member of this house a member of a criminal syndicate. Will you please withdraw?
I do not refer to anyone. I refer to the group of Zumas and Guptas as part of syndicates. I refer to the group of Zumas and Guptas. The
Honorable member, you said he, and you were talking about the minister. You said he, and you were talking about the minister. Can you please withdraw that part?
Chair.
Honorable member, I'm still talking to the member
I'm
on...
point of order here.
Honorable
Rule,
member, your
Rule
member is
92.
still standing.
Can you recognize me?
No, not now. I'm still
Why?
talking to the member.
But I'm rising on a point of order.
Honorable
Rule 92.
Honorable Sope, please take your seat. Let me address
But just
the member.
recognize me.
Honorable Sope, please take your seat.
Hey, Chair, I'm the member of this house. Please recognize me.
Honorable Khawla, will you please withdraw?
Madam Speaker, I beg for your indulgence. I refer to Mr. Mahlobo as part of a group led by the pawn, Mr. Mabuza, who's not a member
Honorable
here.
member,
I therefore
honorable
refer to
member,
Mr. Mabuza.
Honorable Khawla, please, we can listen. And I've been assisted by my table here. Yes, you talked about the Zumas. I don't have a problem. Any Zuma can be any Zuma. But you talked about a minister who is a member of this house, that he is a member of the syndicate of criminals. Can you withdraw that?
I refer to close proximity to Mr.
Can you withdraw
Mabuza,
that?
who is a pawn of Guptas. Mr. Mabuza is not a member of this
Honorable
parliament.
members, there is a rule here, which is Rule 31. And Rule 31, if I have to go to it,
Loans to consumers, most of which was in homelands and welfare.
Can your table come and look at my speech? I'm
Honorable
referring
members,
to Mabuza.
But Chair, I have
been asking you,
But
and
I
you have
call
been
an
saying
order
that.
here
So what
because I
I'm
want
going to
to
do,
correct you.
I'm going to allow my table staff to take the Hansard, and we will deal with the matter. Thank you. Because we cannot continue arguing in the House. Honorable Khawla, please take your seat. Honorable Sope.
Chair, may I address you in terms of Rule 78?
Yes.
Please don't appear confused all the time. About your ruling now, you don't know what you are doing.
Sit down. That's not a point of order.
I'm not
Sit down.
I'm not your child.
That's not a point of
I'm
order.
not your child.
Sit down, Honorable Sope. That's not a point of order.
Listen,
Honorable Khawla, your time has actually expired.
I'm not your child.
No, but I'm still speaking.
Honorable Khawla.
What's happening?
Honorable Khawla, please conclude. Your time is about to expire.
Chair, just on
Like
the point of
Siyabonga
order.
Twele before he
Chair,
you
on the
slept
point
in
of
the
order.
same bed fully that nothing will happen to Mr. Mahlobo because he's part of a criminal gang that loots our state, destroys our institution.
Honorable
and
member, honorable member,
will never fire Mr. Mahlobo.
Honorable member.
He's a very close
Honorable
syndicate member of the same group.
Honorable Khawla, I'm now naming you, and the processes will follow. Because now I heard you clearly. I now name you honorable member, and your time has expired.
What did I say?
Sit down, honorable member. I'm naming you. Thank you. ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
But Chair, order Chair.
Honorable Sope.
Yes, in terms of Rule 78, Chair.
Yes.
Chair, I just want to get a clarity. I want to get a clarity from you. Why do you recognize a member to speak, and then when a member, she's still busy speaking, you just switch off the mic? Where do you get that powers from?
Honorable member, take your seat. Take your seat. I'm done with that order, and I've made a ruling. I'm not going to entertain it anymore. Thank you. ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The
Point of
ANC
order.
welcomes the Constitutional Court judgment
Point of
that
order.
dismissed the DA's application to have South
Honorable
Africa's-
Majake, please take your seat. What is your point of order, Honorable Mbata?
Thank you very much, House Chair.
What is your point of order? From which rule?
My point of order, I just want to know the new name. Of
Honorable.
member. What is his new name now?
Who?
The honorable member. You
Can
said
you
will
take
be
your
naming-
seat, please?
You
Take your
said
seat.
you will be naming him. What is his new name now?
Look into the rules, you'll know what I'm saying. Continue, Honorable Majake.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. The ANC welcomes the Constitutional Court judgment that dismissed the DA's application to have South Africa's decision to withdraw from the International Criminal Court of Justice declared unconstitutional. The court has concluded that the application should be dismissed as a matter does not invoke the jurisdiction of the court. The ANC believes the DA's continued attempt to circumvent political processes of the Republic of South Africa by running to courts is a waste of time and money. The dismissal of the application is a positive rejection of their dangerous attempt at drawing the judiciary into ideological and political contest that does not violate the Constitution. The DA's continued attempt to destabilize the country is a clear demonstration of South Africa having an unpatriotic opposition party that is obsessed with becoming powerful at the expense of the people of this country, taking time for their development on trivial matters. The application was nothing more than just yet another concerted effort by the opposition to defend imperialism under the guise of promoting human rights. I thank you.
Okay, let me attend her. Ahang, SA.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. With Honorable President Zuma still in charge, our democracy is slowly dying. Our political environment is becoming depressingly sterile. We are faster becoming a carbon copy of Zimbabwe. Under the leadership of President Zuma, competency and integrity has been replaced by patronage, laziness, and dishonest leadership. The ruling elite are feeding themselves without shame. This is the darkest time in our nation history. This corrupt administration is hell-bent to bleed the country to death. Honorable Chair, we've paid a heavy price for this democracy. We cannot stand on the fence while our constitution is butchered, while the state has become an instrument to protect the corrupt elite. Honorable Chair, under this administration, we are witnessing erosion of public confidence in government. While the ANC is protecting the president, treating him like a demigod, the future of our people, chances of our economic progress, renewal of moral leadership are wiped out. Honorable Chair, we have come to a realization, as Arange say, that for South Africa to move forward, the ANC must lose power come 2019. To restore responsible government, Their arrogance has blackened the rising sun. No amount of prayers and fasting can reverse this decay of moral leadership. I thank you.
ANC. Thank you very much, House Chair. This side, House Chair. The ANC is against any form of violence and has always sought to find effective ways of ridding the society of the ugly scourge of violence against women and children. Pursuant of its multidisciplinary approach in this effort, the ANC urges everyone to embrace Brand South Africa's digital campaign, #NoExcuses, and wear a white ribbon. Brand South Africa will launch the No Excuses campaign in support of the annual global 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children campaign taking place between the 25th November to the 10th December 2016. The campaign aims to raise awareness of the negative impact that violence and abuse have on women and children, as well as a call for an end to the scourge. We must work together to defeat this ill that affects every family and community in our country. Women and children have a right to a peaceful and a safe world. Thank you, House Chair. Thank you. DA.
Honourable Chair, this week Minister of Basic Education released a statement on the progress made in delivering infrastructure in terms of the regulations regulating to minimum norms and standards for public school infrastructure. What the Minister, however, did not say is that since the implementation of the ASIDI program, her department continues to miss their own targets and promises year after year. According to the NEAMS report, we still have 569 schools with no electricity, 171 schools with no water supply, and 68 schools with no sanitation, and 4,986 pit latrines, 0 in the Western Cape. I was shocked at my findings during oversight visit to Riatlagloa Primary School in Valwater, where 182 learners and their teachers are risking their lives by going to these very dangerous and unsafe ANC toilets. We cannot wait till another child falls into a toilet and drown. The Minister must intervene, as this is against the dignity and the rights of our children.
ANC. ANC. There's a point of order. What's the point of order, Honourable Member?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to rise under Rule 71.
Yeah.
About your ruling that you made earlier on regarding
Honourable
our
Member, the ruling is made.
No,
I'm not
Chair,
going
it's a
to
wrong
do-
rule. I'm
No, it's
engaging
not.
you.
It's
no,
not.
Chair, just read the rule.
Honourable Member.
No, Chair, read Rule 71.
I'm going to switch off
No,
your
Chair, I'm
mic.
raising
Thank
the
you
rule.
very much.
It's
I'm
a
going
wrong
to
rule, Chair.
In naming it on Rule 71, you are correct.
Chair, just
Thank you.
check Rule 71.
ANC.
Chair, Rule 71.
Honourable Member, I have ruled, and if you have problems with my ruling,
But
you
it's a
know
wrong
which
ruling.
avenues to do.
No,
Thank
Chair.
you.
We can't allow
I'm not
you
going to allow you,
rule wrongly.
Honourable
It's
Member.
wrong. You
know
didn't
where to
follow
go.
the correct procedures,
You know where
Chair.
to go if you are not satisfied. Thank you very much. Continue, ANC.
Chair.
ANC. ANC.
Chair.
ANC, continue.
Rule 71, just read it. Chair, you have done a wrong ruling. We're engaging you. Rule 71.B.
Honourable Member, I will now evoke Rule 70 on you because I have been talking that you must take your seat and you are not. Rule 68 says that when I rise, you must sit. I'm not taking point of order on a ruling that has already been made. That's how your interpretation. That's why I say send it where you know it's correct. Continue, Honourable Member.
But Chair.
Honourable Member, I think I'm going to use Rule 70 now.
I'm going to use Rule 70 on you now.
What is difficult for you to read Rule
Honorable
71?
member,
What is
please
difficult?
take your seat.
But what
Otherwise,
is difficult?
Honorable member.
Chair, which book are you using?
Honorable member can.
What book are you using?
Honorable member, you are continuously disrupting the House. And if this is the last time I tell you now, if you continue, I'm going to evoke Rule 70.
I'm not. I'm engaging you in the.
We don't engage in this House. If you continue, I'm going to evoke Rule 70. Continue, honorable member. ANC.
Enkomu mtshami wa xitulu. Vukorhokeri bya swa rihanyu byi ndlandlamuka eka mfumo wa Limpopo. Honorable Chair, access to free quality health care through the expansion of services and development of the required human resources and skills is a priority of the ANC. We therefore proudly celebrate the Limpopo provincial government's concerted effort in increasing the training of doctors locally and abroad. This commitment is realized in the recent graduation of 4 specialized medical doctors qualified in fields of radiology, forensic pathology, pediatrics, and pediatric pulmonology, respectively. Honorable Chairperson, xa nkoka swinene lexi xi nga humelela lexi xi thovaka timbirhi i mhaka ya leswaku ti-graduates leti ti graduatiwe eka mfumo eka University ya Limpopo leyi yi nga tumbuluxiwa hi mfumo wa African National Congress. Va khale a va nga hembangi loko va tiri rihlampfu lerintshwa ri tiya hi ra khale. These doctors, through their specialized qualifications, will contribute to improve capacity and quality in the critically needed areas of our healthcare services. Mfambisi wa ntirho dyondzo I xihlovo xa vutivi. This achievement brings confidence and hope to our people in the ANC's commitment to a free quality health care for all.
Thank you. That concludes member statement. Are there any ministerial responses? Honorable Chohan, followed by Honorable, let me start with Honorable Nkwinti.
Honorable Chair, thank you very much. I'm trying to make sense of what has been said here, which would therefore call for ministers to respond. It's very difficult. Honestly speaking, I may only say that, you know, the Honorable Pruama over there and other honorable members, they've written off the African National Congress. Actually, this happened in the late 20s and mid-30s. With the formation of the unity movement, they thought the ANC was done. They were wrong. That's what happened when the PAC was formed in 1959. They were wrong. They were saying the same thing even with COPE as recently as that. They were wrong. The ANC has got the capability and ability to self-correct. Where is COPE today? How many people remain from COPE? UDM, even the EFF, who stand here all the time and say the ANC, we're going to destroy the ANC. They're not understanding the ANC. The ANC is going to come out of this and actually be in 2019, the ANC will be even stronger than what it is today. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Masuku.
Order, Chair. Order, Chair.
Take your seat, Honorable Masuku. Honorable Khawula, what's your point of order?
I rise on Rule 31, point of privilege. The minister is actually making an admission that
Honorable
the ANC is in the
that's
wrong
not a
path,
point of
and
order.
therefore it will
Please sit before
self-correct.
I switch
Thank
off
you,
your mic.
Minister.
Sit. Continue, Honorable Masuku. That's not a point of order.
Honorable Soleli, the 91 million road in Free State is part of the many roads that are being constructed in that province and
Chair.
other provinces.
Chair, order.
What's your point of order?
I thought you are giving the minister
What
the
is-
opportunity. This is not a minister.
Honorable member, I'm going to switch off your mic now. Continue, Honorable member.
The 91 million in the Free State is one of the many other roads that, many networks of roads that Free State is building. And in other provinces that we have shared with you, it is part of the 1.3 trillion rand that we have been spending as government, equaling 1 billion a day in 300 projects in the country. When you drive around and you see something that says detour, the road is under construction, it's part of that 1.5 billion rand that we're spending a day. And it's creating 191,142 jobs in this program. And Honorable Van der Merwe, please, when we talk about delivery on infrastructure, at least we must have a baseline. Because when you say electricity in schools is zero.
House Chairperson, on a point of order, I don't know if it's a deputy minister or a minister, but he's confused.
On what point are you rising?
On the Honourable Van der Merwe.
On what point are you rising, Honourable Van der Merwe?
He's confused.
Honourable member.
He's answering the Honourable Van der Merwe.
That's what point?
He's answering the Honourable Van der Merwe. I'm saying he's
Honourable
confused.
member,
He must answer the right
that's not a point of order. Continue, Honourable member.
When you say that number of schools without electricity in the Western Cape is zero, you must tell us what baseline from apartheid that baseline was coming from. Because in the Western Cape, in as far as I know, is that there were no schools that do not have electricity before. And in any case, electricity is a national mandate.
Thank you. Your time has expired.
Honorable Honorable Chairperson, I rise on Rule 92. I think it would be incorrect for Hansard to reflect that Honorable Van der Merwe made a statement in this House. It was not Honorable Van der Merwe, and I think the records need to be corrected. The minister might not know the name, Deputy Minister might not know the name correctly.
Honourable Chohan, noted.
Chairperson, good citizenship is as much part of our mandate as distributing IDs and birth certificates. We have over the last few years visited dozens of schools to speak on this issue of good citizenship. This entails fundamentally a deep respect for human dignity, that persons, human beings, are deserving of dignity regardless of gender, race, or sex. While I stand to condemn the criminal acts in the case of Victor Lochwa, it behoves us, I believe, as public representatives, as leaders, to refrain from emotive language, from provocative language that merely seeks to evoke racial hatred and raise racial tensions. We must all strive to shine a light ahead towards a more caring, non-racial, non-sexist, and harmonious society. It therefore behoves us all in this House to be true leaders in times of heightened tension and crisis in our society. We reaffirm here today that most South Africans, whether black or white, are indeed non-racial and non-sexist in orientation and they deserve leaders who are also thus.
Thank you. Any other minister would like to make a response? Thank you. That concludes ministerial responses. We now go to the last item on the order paper, which is notices of motion. Does the member of the ANC wish to raise a notice of a motion? Honorable Masango.
I hereby move on behalf of the ANC that at its next sitting, the House debates the anniversary of 20 years of formal bilateral cooperation between Cuba and South Africa. Thanks.
Thank you. DA.
Thank you, Madam House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates the fact that PRASA is in contempt of court as it's not paid millions owed to 3 Cape Town security companies as ordered by the courts. What the impact is on these companies and the reasons why PRASA is behaving illegally. I thank you.
Thank you. EFF.
I rise on behalf of EFF to move that in the next sitting, that the House debates if the ministers and the heads of departments are taking the Minister of Finance instructions and National Treasury regulations serious, particularly the cost-cutting measures and priority spending. I so move.
Thank you. ANC. Honorable Majake.
Thank you, House Chairperson. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates strengthening of support for struggles for national self-determination for Sahrawi people and a multilateral approach to peaceful management of global conflict. So I move.
Thank you. IFP.
Thank you very much, Honourable House Chairperson. I hereby give notice that I shall move on behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party that this House debates the urgent need to establish a fact-finding mission to track down and locate truant ANC MPs and ministers who have abandoned their constitutional responsibilities and duties as entrusted to them by the electorate and who are now seriously and negatively impeding on the work of Parliament. I so move.
Thank you. NFP.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. On behalf of the National Freedom Party, I move that at the next sitting of this Honourable House, the members deliberate on the continued occurrence of child marriages in South Africa and the prevalence thereof in rural areas in particular, despite comprehensive constitutional and other legislative measures to curb this practice, mindful of the fact that a child under the age of 15 is married every 7 seconds globally. I so move.
Thank you. ANC. Mr. Deck.
Chair. I move on behalf of the African National Congress that at its next sitting, the House debates the important role of cities and provincial governments in Africa's industrialization efforts. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you. UDM. FF plans. DA.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates the importance of transparency and public participation in legislative bodies, including Parliament, provincial legislatures, and municipal councils, and all their committees, and methods for strengthening these constitutional imperatives.
Thank you. EFF. Order, honourable members.
I rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters to move that in its next sitting, that the House debates the required municipal capacity and resources to provide services to people who have identified a piece of land, like it, and then proceed to occupy it. Thank you.
Thank you. ANC, honourable member, that side, will come to you.
Thank you, House Chairperson. I move on behalf of the African National Congress that in its next sitting, the House debates integrating the formal sector and township economies into the mainstream of our national and regional economies. I so move. Thank you, House Chair.
Cope, not here. ACGP, not here. ANC, Honorable Sinoli. Soledi, sorry.
I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates ways to counter the increase of sexual assault on female students at institutions of higher learning and communities at large.
Thank you. AIC, not here. Ahang SA, not here. ANC, Honorable Tseke.
Thank you, House Chair. I move on behalf of the ANC that at its next sitting, the House debates integrating regional economy and markets to build a strong regional industrial and manufacturing base. I thank you.
Thank you. APC, not here. PAC, not here. GA?
I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes that on Monday, the 14th of November 2016, Minister Mahlobo, in an interview which is publicly available, stated that Mthebo Dlamini has visited his house several times. On Wednesday, the 16th of November, Minister Mahlobo, answering oral questions in the House, stated that Mr. Dlamini has never visited his house. Minister Mahlobo has thus deliberately misled the National Assembly, resolves to condemn the actions of the minister, censure the minister by calling upon the minister to apologize unreservedly for his actions to the House and all involved members of the public, and demands a full briefing to be made to the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training of all interaction between the minister and Mr. Dlamini. Thank you.
Thank you, ANC.
Honorable Chair, thank you. I hereby move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates the bringing of water facilities and quality water closer to communities in order to improve the quality of people's lives. I so move.
Thank you very much. Ek dink ons is ten einde van die besigheid van die dag en die huis is verdag. Dankie.